Hey there guys, welcome to today's live stream. So here lately, I've been trying to focus a little bit more on mainly nutrition based stuff, things of that nature. That's sort of been my focus here recently. I've been doing a lot of research as it relates to nutrition, and I do plan on doing a certification for sort of nutrition coaching. However, as far as a personal trainer, I still have a good amount of knowledge as it relates to nutrition, and I really want to share more of that side with you guys as it relates to nutrition. So, a lot of the stuff that I share with you, even though I'm not a nutrition coach, a lot of this does come from what I've learned as a personal trainer because I do have a knowledge based background on some of the basics of nutrition, primarily focused on, fat loss and muscle gain. Those are the two key components that I know as far as sort of the fundamentals of those, basically those topics of nutrition. So I do have a good knowledge base on those, but I do want to sort of expand on that, and I'll plan on becoming a certified nutrition coach in the near future to sort of expand sort of my knowledge as a personal trainer and to, of course, get a new certification under my belt to sort of, you know, be adapt to some new concepts, new things that I may not have full knowledge of, but that I can learn. So what I'm discussing when I discuss nutrition, this is stuff that I know based on my personal training certification. I do have the certification to teach and give knowledge on this and to train on this. So that's something to keep in mind, because I know when it comes to something that you guys may not fully know, is personal training does focus a lot more on the exercise sort of side of training. However, it does have some levels of nutrition when it comes to fat loss and muscle gain. So that's what I want to do is sort of expand a little bit more and sort of discuss a little bit more of my knowledge that I have on nutrition because I do have a good knowledge as it relates to nutrition, especially when it comes to the major goals of fat loss and muscle gain. So I just wanted to share that with you guys. I plan on in the future, becoming a certified nutrition coach. That's my goal, is to sort of get that under my belt as well. But I do have a good sort of baseline knowledge on some of the information I can give you as it relates to muscle gain muscle gain and fat loss. And another topic that I do know as it relates to nutrition strategies is influences on weight gain, which I want to discuss today. And I'm really excited to sort of expand and discuss these things because I think they are important. As you guys know, that working out and exercise play hand in hand. So, or working on it, yeah, of course they play hand in hand. Working out and nutrition play hand in hand when it comes to sort of progress and reaching your specific goals. So, I want to go a little bit more into detail on this topic because I feel like this is some information that a lot of people would be interested in. So let's go ahead and get started. So what I'm going to talk about today, of course, is the influences on weight gain. So there are many factors that can influence weight gain, and I'm going to sort of run down. My main sort of presentation is going to be running down these different things that influence weight gain. And the reasoning why I want to discuss this is especially if weight gain is sort of something that you struggle with, this is going to be a good idea for you to, and good value for you, I guess I should say, to sort of take this with you and think about some of the things that are influencing these factors of your weight gain. And you can sort of think about it throughout your day and sort of take basically proactive measures to sort of counteract that. So, what are the factors that influence weight gain? Well, there's a ton of different factors that influence weight gain. The first thing I want to talk about is the law of thermodynamics, which I'm going to explain exactly what that means. So basically what the law of thermodynamics is energy intake. It's basically a process of that our body does to sort of take in energy, which is chemical energy, which is our food, and it basically sort of processes that chemical energy and turns it into ATP, which is the body's energy currency. Metabolism is at work, and it's also releasing chemical waste, which is carbon dioxide and water with our body, as well as heat. So basically, it's energy intake that has, excuse me, energy intake has one of the most common or one of the most important factors of influence on weight management. It can often be considered one of the most important factors as it relates to weight gain. So, one thing to keep in mind is there's a term known as the first law of thermodynamics, which is energy cannot be created or destroyed, but merely converted into one form or another. So, the energy that you intake into your body is, of course, the major influence when it comes to weight gain. So, and another thing that to keep in mind too is energy expenditure, which I'm going to expand a little bit more on as well. So, if your energy intake is less than energy expenditure, so let's sort of understand exactly what energy intake means. So, energy intake is the foods that you're taking in. Like I have in this diagram here, it's that chemical energy that you're taking for your body to sort of be able to function and do certain, you know, not nutritional functions, but certain bodily functions in your body. So that is basically the energy intake that you're taking from the food. That the carbohydrates, fats, anything is all the energy that is used in your, or that energy is used for intake to perform certain body functions. So if your energy intake is less than your energy expenditure, energy stored in the body will be used as fuel for the body. So energy expenditure is basically burning that energy. It's pretty much to sum up exactly what that means. And there's another term that I will discuss as well. I'm going to discuss a little bit further in the video, but I'll probably go ahead and explain it now. There's a term known as total daily energy expenditure, which is the total amount of energy that's expended in a day. I'm going to expand on that as we go through the presentation. But basically, as it comes to weight loss, when we're still talking about this law of thermodynamics, weight loss requires a deficit of calories and weight gain requires a surplus. So, kind of like what I've talked about in the past, and when I've talked about when it comes to sort of if your goal is fat loss, having a moderation when it comes to sweets, sort of supplementing your diet, this sort of goes hand in hand with that same concept. So again, weight loss requires a deficit calories, so less calories is going to help influence weight loss. And then weight gain, if you're wanting to gain weight, you're going to want to have more of a surplus of calories, so you're going to want to intake more calories. So energy intake is primarily governed by the quantity and quality of food and beverages ingested by an individual. So what you're eating, basically you probably heard the term, what you eat is what you get out, or sort of, you are what you eat, sort of that term. And that's basically what this is already summing up. If you're eating a lot of processed foods, you're not going to get good energy from that. Your body's not going to sort of, it's not going to help with your metabolism and that energy in your body. So that's something to keep in mind. So some foods are calorically dense and can contribute to excess energy intake. So when you're intaking energy you have these high calorie foods, you're basically exceeding the energy intake in your body. And that's sort of what's causing this weight gain. So other foods such as lean proteins, high fiber, whole grains, vegetables, and fruits are not only nutritious, but also less calorically dense. So that's why, when we talk about the goal of fat loss, that's why you're sort of basically supplementing what you would normally eat. You want to eat foods that are not excessive in an energy intake. You want to eat, or not excessively dense with calories. You want to eat foods that are not as dense, that's less calorically dense. So that sort of goes back into what I've discussed with fat loss in the past. You want to sort of supplement your diet. You want to sort of change what types of foods that you're eating. And you can eat sweet foods. You can eat foods that are like, that's more sugary. You just need to have them in a moderation. You need to sort of eat them in smaller moderations. So I can give you an example of this, and this is something that I sort of keep in mind because since I've become a personal trainer, I've been trying to get more strict with my diet, and which really I should be because I need to set an example of myself as a person if I'm going to train other people, I mean, that's the whole point. Me being a personal trainer is to set an example and to teach people. So I do these things in my life. I keep track of I don't do it enough, but I keep track of calories, and I'm very strict when it comes to sweets. I don't really eat sweets like I used to in the past. So one of the things that I can sort of give you an example and relate to. So Oreos is one thing that I've eaten, I ate a couple weeks ago. And usually when I look at any kind of sweets now, I always look at the calorie count and look at the servings that's on the food. So usually with Oreos, I want to say when I've looked at it in the past, I mean, this could be related to any kind of, if you look at any food or you go to the store and you look at food, you'll often see at the bottom there's like a little sort of, it's like a summary of the how many calories are in a specific serving. So when I looked at a pack of Oreos, and I've kind of mentioned this in the past, but I do want to sort of reiterate this. So when you look at a pack of Oreos, it'll likely say that a serving would be 2 cookies, and that's roughly 160 calories. So usually for me is if I want to, if it's in my diet and it's in my sort of calorie intake, then stopping at 2 cookies is that serving, and I'm going to stop at that serving. So that's what I recommend is to sort of follow the servings that you see on, and especially if you want to reward yourself and you're eating healthy, I would recommend, start with that, looking at that serving and just do a single serving. Do it in moderation. That's the main thing. And that's what I do is if I do kind of want to cheat on my diet, I guess you would say, or have a cheat meal or something, have a dessert, is to go by that small serving amount, the smallest serving. And something you got to be aware of, you have to stop at that serving. You cannot go over that serving amount and intake excessive calories. So what I would recommend is go by that single serving. That's the way I follow it. If I decide that I want to eat something sweet, I stop at that specific serving and that's it. So that's something that you just need to keep in mind, especially if don't binge eat. That's the thing is sort of stop the binge eating and focus on the servings that it says. Look at the nutrition facts, look at what's in it. And that's something that I sort of want to give an example of is to just go by the servings. I know I sort of went off a little bit further into that, but I wanted to explain that and give you guys an example of what I usually follow. So I just sort of talk about this, but the first law of thermodynamics, which I just discussed, is basically that energy cannot be created or destroyed, but it's merely converted from one form to another. Basically what I just explained, that chemical energy you're taking into your body, it's converting that energy. That's basically summing up exactly what that means. So going beyond sort of this energy intake, there are other factors besides food that can actually influence weight gain on your body. And poor sleep is one of them. So adults between the age of 18 to 64 years, adults are recommended to get between 7 to 9 hours of sleep per night. However, many adults fall short to these specific guidelines, Inadequate sleep can often increase risk of chronic disorders. So, poor sleep is not only a major influence on weight gain, it also has an influence on muscle gain as well. And I've learned this myself. So, sleep is essential to not, I mean, it's just essential to everything. It's essential for our body. We need it. So, when it comes to, poor sleep, your body's sort of recovering. That's basically what it's doing is it's recovering from the day that you've had. And I can give you a great example of this. This is something that I follow. I try to be strict on the amount of sleep that I get. Sometimes with me, I usually, at times, I've set a routine for myself. But with me, I usually try to go to bed at around 9:30. That's sort of the time where I sort of, okay, I need to go to sleep. And I always get up at 5. I set an alarm for 5 because I go to the gym early in the morning. That's sort of just been my routine. And I used to stay up late before. I used to stay up a little bit later. Um, I've not always been one to really stay up late, but before I'd sort of became a personal trainer, I wasn't really following a strict sleep schedule, which wasn't good. When I was living in California, of course, I didn't have a lot of money, and after work, I used to like stop at McDonald's and things like that. And I wouldn't go to bed till late at night because I was working pretty late. And so I just didn't have a sleep schedule. I just didn't have a structured schedule. And so I sort of gained weight not only from poor eating, but because of my sleep, I wasn't having a proper sleep schedule. And, I've always kind of been an early bird. So I was going to sleep late, but then I was still getting up early. So there just wasn't a structure with my sleep schedule. And your body really needs that. It's not only gonna help with, sort of that weight gain and muscle gain, but also just your metabolism. Sleep has an effect on your metabolism as well. And so what I would recommend is sort of create a schedule. I know that you can set a timer on your phone, sort of following, basically set an alarm when you need to go to sleep. Um, there's like a bedtime timer I know that's on iPhones that you can try. But what I would recommend is getting into a routine with your sleep. I go to bed even at 9:30 on the weekends. That's probably not for everybody, but that's just sort of my schedule. I get up at 5 every morning, go to bed at 9:30. That's, when you create these schedules and these routines, it becomes nothing and you start to get in that recommended hours of sleep that you need. Now, before I move on to this side, I do want to sort of touch on muscle gain. And this is something that I learned too, is that especially I know we're talking about sort of the influences on weight gain, but I do want to mention muscle gain because it does have an influence on sleep as well. Because muscle gain is all about recovery. So if you're training and you're not getting enough sleep, you're not giving your body sort of that ability to recover and repair itself. Because when it comes to, weightlifting and building muscle, you're basically tearing down your muscles. That's the whole process. And so that's why afterwards you sort of need that recovery process for your muscles to sort of rebuild themselves. So that's why sleep plays an important role in muscle gain as well. So just sort of create a schedule and a routine, and just follow that as the best way that you can. Really just sort of changing your habits is the most important part, and it is difficult to do, but once you sort of get in the habit of, this is the time I need to go to sleep and this is the time I wake up, it'll just be repetitive and you'll get so used to it. Another thing, this is outside of sort of the normal control that you would have, but this is something to keep in mind. So we just talked about basically energy intake, and then we talked about sleep. Endocrine disorders is also another thing that can influence weight gain, and difficulty of losing weight can be influenced by several endocrine disorders. So endocrine disorders that typically result in weight gain can include, well, I guess I missed that slide. But I do have some things that I can sort of explain with that. I completely missed the rest of that slide, but that's okay. So There's a few things that different types of endocrine disorders that I can discuss that do relate to weight gain. And hypothyroidism is one of them. That's basically low activity of the thyroid gland that can disrupt heart rate, body temperature, metabolism. Cushing syndrome is another endocrine disorder, which is a hormone disorder that causes abnormally high levels of cortisol in the body. This is another one, another endocrine disorder, but this is related to women. So it's polycystic ovarian syndrome, which is PCOS. It's a hormone disorder that occurs in women of childbearing age that causes irregular periods, excessive levels of male hormone androgen, small cysts on the outer edges of the ovaries, and obesity. So these are different endocrine disorders, and they do have a major effect when it comes to weight gain. Treatment of the underlying issues like this usually addresses the weight gain while allowing an individual to successfully manage their weight. So if a client has these specific issues, it's recommended that they sort of are referred to a medical doctor. If you do have these issues and you sort of you want to lose weight, it's recommended, of course, that you reach out to a medical doctor before reaching out to a personal trainer. That's the main thing to keep in mind, is just because, I can help you with losing weight. If you do have these underlying issues, then it's important to especially go to a doctor before you reach out to a personal trainer. So that's something to keep in mind because these are somewhat out of your control. However, they can be treated. Okay, so after endocrine disorders, we have medications. So something to keep in mind that several medications, such as antidepressants, anti-anxiety drugs, as well as psychotropics, contraceptive pills, etc., can affect weight. So these medications can disrupt glucose and lipid-based metabolism and may affect the amount of physical activity, all of which can contribute to weight gain. So it can be said with any kind of medication can have any kind of influence, not just these medications. There's tons of different medications that can have an influence on weight gain. And something that you can do is to reach out to your doctor and sort of discuss different options. What's the best option to take that will sort of not be a major influence on your weight gain. However, there's sometimes where you can't really, supplement that, I guess you would say. So the best thing is to sort of be aware of what you're intaking, what medications you're intaking, and sort of find ways to be able to counteract that and take measures to sort of, you know, put more exercise into your sort of your workout routine. If you do take medications, maybe you need to do more exercise to sort of counteract that effect that the medications have on weight gain. So that's one thing that I would recommend to sort of keep in mind. Now, with medications, it's always recommended to talk to your doctor and to sort of discuss a little bit more on what would be the better option if you don't want it to have a major impact on weight gain. So that's what I would do as far as any client is to refer it to them, to refer it to a doctor, because that is out of my scope of practice. So that's something to keep in mind. But any kind of medications like that can have an influence on weight gain. Another thing that I want to touch that I don't have a slide of here is metabolism. And I don't have the slide for this, but I do want to sort of touch on it a little bit. So metabolism is defined as the chemical changes in the living cells by which energy is provided for vital processes in our body. So in broad terms, it can be thought of as the culmination of all the energy usage of an organism, such as the human body. So metabolism, all of our metabolisms are different. However, exercise, especially when you're integrating exercise into your daily life, it's going to help your metabolism. It's going to help with that losing weight. So if you don't have a good metabolism, adding exercise is going to help benefit that process. So that's something to keep in mind, is your metabolism does have a major impact on that. And of course, as we get older, our metabolism is not as great. However, exercise can sort of counteract that when you implement that into your workouts. So that's something that I sort of wanted to touch on a little bit. Now, moving on to total daily energy expenditure, which I sort of discussed at the beginning, but basically what this is, it's known as TDEE. It's simply how much energy is expended in a day. There are various components as it relates to TDEE, and this includes non-exercise activity thermogenesis. I've discussed this in the past, but basically what NEAT or NEAT is basically activities that you don't do that don't require sort of structured activity, or that don't require a structured exercise routine, or you're burning sort of that energy. Exercise activity thermogenesis, EAT or EAT, is basically the the energy activity that you're getting from exercise. Whereas non-exercise activity thermogenesis is the energy that you're not getting from daily exercise. That's just basically, to sort of sum it up, it's just the energy that you're getting from walking or doing basic things around the house. If you're going to the store, things like that is basically what NEAT is. And exercise activity thermogenesis is basically just your exercise that you're doing at the gym. Uh, any kind of exercise, resistance training, plyometric training, that's basically what EAT is. And another thing is your basal metabolic rate. That's another thing to keep in mind when it comes to TDEE. So basically what basal metabolic rate is the amount of energy required to maintain the body at rest. This is basically involuntary processes. This is just the normal, process of the body that is doing to sort of just maintain its function. So that's something I wanted to touch on as well. All of these have an influence. So one thing you could do is, if you don't exercise at the moment, or if you do, you can sort of be aware of your non-exercise activities and sort of implement more activities, or something. The way that I would sum this up is like, for example, if you go to the store and you're parking far away from the store, you're increasing that non-exercise activity thermogenesis, if that makes sense. So if you're parking close, you're not using as much energy. So that's basically something that you can keep in mind, is to sort of change your daily activities to, get more active outside of regular physical activity. And, if you, either way, you can increase this non-exercise activity and also increase your exercise activity. That's going to help with the influence of weight gain. So I hope that you guys sort of understand that. I wanted to explain it in a way to where you understand the stuff, because it's a lot of large terms that don't make sense at first, but once you sort of understand what they mean, it does help to, sort of, it brings up a light bulb and you're like, okay, that makes sense. So that's something that I wanted to explain to you guys, that, just being aware of your daily activity is the main thing when it comes to TDEE. Well, I did have a slide for metabolism. I thought I didn't. But we'll go ahead and discuss it again. So metabolism is defined as the chemical changes in living cells which energy is provided for vital processes and activities in the body. Metabolism is often referred to individuals as BMR, basal metabolic rate, which is basically what I just discussed, is the amount of energy required to maintain the body at rest. So as we'll say, that's just a sort of, just as rehash that and rediscuss that. Alright, so that's pretty much all I have for you guys today. I really wanted to go a little bit in detail with this and explain it, to give you guys sort of more of the fundamentals of what influences weight gain, and things that you can take with you to think about and to sort of just counteract these things. Of course, there are certain factors. If you do have a disorder, endocrine disorder, or, there's certain medications you take, those factors, of course, sometimes are kind of out of your control. However, you can work around those things by increasing your exercise activities, even non-exercise activities like I just discussed, as well as your energy intake, which is your food, being aware of your food intake, helping, focusing on your sleep. Those are factors that you can control. So that's something to keep in mind, is There may be factors that you can't control, but there are a ton that you can. And it's just basically knowing how to manage those different factors. So that's pretty much all I have for you guys today. I really hope that you found value from this. I really hope that it helps. I want to go into a little bit more detail on these topics because I feel like this is what a lot of people want to hear and a lot of people want to know, especially with weight gain. So if you have any questions about anything I discuss on this live stream or any other live streams, you can send me a text on my phone number there, or you could call, whichever you prefer, as well as sending me an email with my Gmail below. That's where I usually do a lot of my business related stuff is through that Gmail as well. So definitely contact me and you can message me through Facebook, any other messenger, any other platform that I'm on, you can message me through there as well. If you have questions about anything that I discuss, I'm willing to answer those questions. I don't want to just sell you something. I really want to show you the value that I can give you and that I can offer. So I really hope that you guys found this helpful. I do want to mention that in next week, next Wednesday, I have another good live stream that I'm going to be discussing on supplements, supplementation. I'm going to go into a little bit more detail. I'm going to discuss about health supplements, dietary supplement based supplements, I should say, as well as ergogenic aids, which is basically performance supplements such as creatine, protein, stimulants like caffeine, things of that nature. I'll be discussing on the next live stream. I'm excited to discuss that because I like talking about supplements too, because I think it's an interesting topic and there's so many things you could talk about. As well as vitamins. I'm going to discuss vitamins and minerals as well. So thank you guys for watching. I hope that you found this helpful, and I will see you guys in the next live stream.